Welcome once again to Dave Blaze. And we start off with an apology, Dave, because we've had feedback from viewers. Basically, they're a bit upset. And they're,
Really? At
yes,
what?
well, this 30% I alluded to, that the stocks fell last week. I've got to apologize. They did not fall, folks. It was a joke. You remember the days of jokes? Yeah. Well, it was a joke. And I
Listen,
apologize. It wasn't 30%, Dave. It was actually 40%, as you well know.
it's actually 40% right. Right. Me becoming CEO nearly bankrupt. That's fantastic. Listen, the feedback that we've been getting on the George side, and also, frankly, on the Blaze web services side, is that the interviews are marvelous. They absolutely love you, Rodney. They think that your
They're good.
your wit,
They're
your
good.
dry British wit is so on target. And as a result of this, um, Gene Ho wants to get in. Gene Ho wants to get in on the act. So
Oh.
we're going to get him. I'll help line up an interview with Gene early part of next week, and we'll get that worked out. So that'll be good too.
Can be bought. Well, there we are. We'll see how that happens.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I
Hey,
feel
did you see the? Hold on a second. Did you see the Hollywood actresses? The big name Hollywood actresses, Charlize Theron, Sandra Bullock, Reese Witherspoon, all coming out and saying that women had better get some experience with AI, with artificial intelligence. That women are being left behind and all of this stuff and so on. And as you know, and I pointed out last week, George Magazine put out the Ageless Tech, which is an AI book. You can download it. We give bi-monthly updates and so on. No reason to be left behind, Sandra.
well, it's a boring phrase, but it is the future. And I'll tell you something else in the future. I've had
Yeah.
another tip off about you. Apparently, you've been buying dollars for gold. I mean, I'm talking heavy stuff now. I'm talking millions of dollars.
Not me. Not me. I love my US dollars. I love my Federal Reserve note US dollars. But apparently, President Putin of Russia needed to sell off 22 tons of gold in exchange for US dollars, mind you, in order to pay, uh, purchase supplies and fund the Russian economy.
Do you
How
want
about them
do you want the negative side of that? It's only left him with 20,000 tons of gold. So he's not sold off an awful lot. But I tell you what, there's a right time to buy, and I think it's the right time for him to buy. He sees the strength of the dollar.
The dollar is very strong, and the reason the dollar is very strong is because in time of conflict, the world looks to, all right, now where is a safe haven? And the safe haven is in the most stable, wealth backed currency on earth, and that is the US dollar. And that's why people flock to the dollar. The DXY measurement has been hovering around 99, 98, 99, 100 for the dollar for the last couple of months, which is pretty good.
It is,
Now,
and
of course, the UK pound is what's the pound trading at these days?
quite poorly. It's really tied to the EU, the
Yeah,
European Union, and they're not doing well. It's weak, it's flopping around, and it's not good. But I tell you what, the real driver of this is the Ukraine. The
yeah.
Russians are not doing well. It's been 5 years there now. And they want out of course, on their terms, but they're not going to get it.
No, no, because the problem the Russians have is that Ukraine is winning the war. That's the problem. Listen, Rodney, some extraordinary things are happening. The Ukrainians are blowing up the Russian oil refineries. I mean, think about this. They're not going after the oil wells or their oil production, the refineries. So they can pump the oil out of the ground, but what are they going to do with it? They have to refine it before they can sell it. So the Ukrainians are blowing up their refinery. Listen, the Russians are in bad shape. Their economy is in bad shape. They can't come to the assistance of Iran, which is evident, right? We have full air command and everything else. So, and then the Iranians thought they would blockade the Strait of Hormuz. And the Trump administration said, okay, you think you're funny? All right, fine. We're going to blockade your blockade.
Yes, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because a lot of people don't realize, especially in Europe, what is really going on. Because wars are very different. And Trump's fighting this one very cleverly. Because what the Iranians have done for 57 years is to draw out the talks on and on and on, and nothing is achieved at the end. But he's produced a blockade, he's produced the destruction of what they've got, and it's on his terms now. And I think it won't be long before they get to the table properly.
Right. Well, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are back on their way to Pakistan, to Islamabad, to have more talks, allegedly this evening. And the problem that the Iranians have is this. They are not, I want to tell you, it's a very strange situation with the Iranian regime. They're not afraid of the bombings because they really do. They have zero care for their people. They don't care about their people at all. At all. They care about their people rebelling and, getting rid of the regime. That they care about. But as far as their people suffering, they don't care. The regime just wants to hang on. So what Trump has done, he has cut off their money. Everything that Trump does, when you watch, even in the first term, it's always about, okay, here's how we negotiate with them. Turn off the money. And then they'll start to want to negotiate. And that's what we've done with Iran. They're having a big problem with the oil. They can't get the oil out. So I think today, the next day, one day this week, their storage is done. That's filled up. What are they going to do? They have to negotiate. Now they're going to try and stall. You're right, Rodney. That's what they're good at. But not under these conditions. Not with that blockade in place. And we just sent another aircraft carrier to the area. How many aircraft carriers does the UK have?
Well, I say quite a few. 2 in operation. They're good ones, to be honest, but they have not got the firepower, except if, of course, if it's an F-16 from the States. There's a lot wrong with Europe and a lot wrong with Britain. We know that, and those in the know will tell you that we have a cabinet, 22 members that govern Britain, with Sir Keir Starmer at the head. Not one of those people have got any business experience at all. And if you want a contrast between America and Trump's business experience, that's it. We're in a terrible state. Actually, it is rumored that next week, too late to save his life, of course, that Starmer's going to say the IRGC at last are going to be prescribed, in other words, outlawed. Now, that's 2 years behind anybody else. That is awful.
Yeah, the IRGC, I would think, are akin to the SS under Hitler, because their allegiance is not to the people. Like our military, the United States military, as I'm sure the British military as well, is to protect the people, not whatever administration is in charge. So, but in Iran, the IRGC, the military, is their allegiance is to the regime, not to the people. So all of this allegiance nonsense goes out the window when there's no money. When they can't pay their proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, whoever else, they can't pay their proxies, the SPLC, and the money dries up, all of a sudden the allegiance dries up as well. And this is their problem. It's the money. And Trump knows that, and he's cutting them off. Matter of fact, Rodney, one more point. The United States Treasury has just intercepted a $360 billion transfer of Bitcoin. We intercepted that and squashed it, that the Iranians were trying to make. So that's done. I'm telling you, we've got them right where we want them.
I thought Bitcoin could not be got at.
Yeah. Only the people convincing you to buy Bitcoin told you that. Bitcoin is very traceable. The wallets are very traceable. Everything is very traceable. I know. Everybody said, "Oh, well, I'm going to use this instead of the dollar, and no one will be able to track." It can be tracked easily.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's been a big gap developed, of course, thanks to Sir Keir Starmer, between Britain and America. The love affair, not that there ever was one, is definitely off. And there's a lot of what we call silly season reporting at the moment, because somebody has, in the White House, sat down with a couple of dozen of other people, and they've had a think tank. What should we do about this, that, the other? And somebody said, obviously, oh, what about the Falklands? Let's wake Britain up a little bit and say that Trump is possibly going to say, we've got a voice here about the Falkland Isles, and it's on front page of every newspaper in Britain. Now, okay, there's been a whistleblower, unnamed, and somebody else allegedly backing it up, unnamed. But all sorts of nonsense talk goes on like this everywhere. But of course, the press, whichever side of the Atlantic, are going to make the most of it to sell the bad news formula. But it's going to cause a problem for King Charles and his wife Camilla. That's in 2 or 3 days' time.
Okay, so on our side of the pond, nobody cares about that. I know to the British press and to the European press, that's a big deal. But on our side, nobody cares. You know what everyone's talking about over here? Is Charles going to visit with Prince Harry?
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. And the speculation is that once William at some point assumes the throne, he's going to, disown Harry and his wife, and that's going to be the end of it. So this is the whole speculation that goes on over here. It's like two different
universes.
Worlds of operation.
Don't hold your breath when William eventually has himself on the throne there. He is Charles Mark II.
Yeah, I know. I understand that. But that's all the speculation that's going on. President Trump, apparently has great admiration for the late Queen Elizabeth, and is welcoming in Charles with open arms, and they're probably going to have a big, gigantic state dinner and so on. So that's going to be a big deal. That'll be a big deal over here. So I think that's a good thing. And at the same time, Trump, he's got to get Charles on the side. He goes, what's with this guy Starmer?
Things will be said, obviously, behind the scenes.
Yes.
And it is expected that Trump will bank down a little bit on the Falklands and make some sort of weak and peaceful announcement. We await that. That's what this side of the pond is saying.
Our concern is not so much the Falklands, but we're really we're really eyeballing Greenland.
Yes.
That's a real thing because of the Russian and Chinese operations in the Arctic Circle. Okay, so that's a real thing. And Denmark's position, because they sent a couple of ships over there with the with the International Tea Company or whatever it was, that's not going to fly.
I tell you what, there's a few of us over here, and it is a few of us in comparison to the vast majority who have been completely gaslighted this side of the Atlantic. And that is, people have got to wake up to the fact that Iran will not give up. They have threatened annihilation for Israel. They have threatened annihilation for the West. And unless somebody steps in, and Trump and co have been rightly bemused and now a little angry about NATO. Now, we have got in Spain here a few very big NATO bases. We've also got a left-wing government that is even worse than UK government. They are complete and utter globalists, like the UK government. They've got their agenda. They lie, they kick, they are corrupt like you would not believe in Spain. Spain has always been a little bit this way. And the present Prime Minister, who has to court the ultra left to stay in power, he's fighting lawsuits. His wife's fighting lawsuits. The corruption is awful, but that is very typical of Spain. Now, okay, next year there'll be a chance of them turning it over. But the figures don't match at the moment. I do hope that this regime over here doesn't carry on. I think Trump may have some big influence.
There was a Pentagon email that somehow got leaked out, and Reuters got a hold of it. And in that email, it was being batted around that the Pentagon here in the United States is looking to basically boot Spain out of NATO. And number 2 on the list is Italy. And that is because of their outspoken rejection of our our operation in Iran, and not allowing us to use our bases that are in those 2 countries. So now Spain might, they'll say, "Whoa, you can't do this, you can't this." Okay, we can't. And then the rest of Europe will line up behind the United States, because when it comes down to the facts of the matter, the Europeans need the United States for protection against the Russians, the Iranians, the Chinese, and so on. And if Spain wants to sit out there isolated, let them.
It does surprise me about Meloni, who is right of centre. I think she's been, let's be polite, influenced, because the European Union is so strong.
Yeah.
And they come out with some bizarre things. For instance, at last, miles too late, even Keir Starmer has said, well, let's talk to the sports associations in Britain to get this stupid transgender thing sorted out. We cannot allow men anymore to take part in sports. Hooray, victory. No, the following day for the whole of Europe, they've decided, oh, we've got to take care of the feelings of the transgender community in case we upset them.
Listen, Rodney, you and I both know, first of all, the transgender community is what? 9 people?
In Italy? 9.5, yeah.
I mean, okay. Well, you get my point. And I'm exaggerating, but you get my point. These are some of the most discriminated against individuals in any population. That's number 1. Number 2 is that the groups that are creating a whole controversy about this, could care less about women's sports and so forth. They don't care about women's sports. They just want to advance whatever agenda that they want to advance. Okay, that's number two. Number three is, I have to say, and I know this is going to be unpopular with many of your viewers because you sit on one of the largest media operations in Europe, but I'm going to tell you this right now. This whole transgenders in women's sports, to me, is like feminism coming full circle. I mean, oh, you want to do everything men do? Women, is that what you want to do? You want to be firemen? You want to climb up a ladder and carry a 240-pound male down on your back down a big ladder? Is this what you want to do? Okay. Now men are going to play in your arena. And frankly, for the owners of the sports teams who are paying out salaries and making like less than no money, and this is true, nobody's watching women's sports. If women's sports were as good as men's sports, then the money would be there. But nobody watches them. Okay, so with women's sports, the owners of the team, you're an owner of the team, you're losing your shirt. All of a sudden, you got a couple of transgenders in there as ringers. And you're thinking, oh, this is going to be great. Then the media piles on and there's controversy. And that all of a sudden, everybody's watching your team.
Let me illustrate that with something that happened to the dear old BBC, who is...
How about it?
Well, they're dying, aren't they? But there we are, but they're clinging on as well. And this very day, they've announced that the biggest, well, at one time it was, sports event was a discussion before the football matches on Saturday afternoon, was a midday sports event. And they suddenly decided, instead of getting the four blokes on there to talk, all ex-professionals, they would have to have a couple of ladies. So it was two men, two ladies. And the viewing figures immediately fell by 40%. And the BBC and others, mainstream media, are saying, oh, well, it's because it's had its day, it's run its course. Anything but the elephant in the room, which is the truth. You ask the ordinary Joe in the street, they'll say, well, they know about men's professional football. That's the reason, Dave.
I know, Rodney. I know. That's the obvious reason. And everybody knows it. Nobody wants to say it in polite society, but this show is not polite society.
No, we'll finish the hate speech there and finally go on to what's happening in America. Come on, Putin and Trump and anybody else that wants to join in. President Xi also in China. Apparently, they are working together.
Yeah, they're all working together. Listen, they're all in cahoots. They met in the treehouse, and they're all working together against the global cabal. This is the kind of crazy conspiracy theories that people like to hook onto, and it is absolute fiction. Putin has no love for Trump, absolutely none. He was putting out on state Russian media images of Trump's wife, of the First Lady, Melania Trump, naked, nude, crazy poses, and so on, to humiliate President Trump. President Xi has no love of that. They're adversaries. The same with Putin. Look, this is all a novel idea that they're all in cahoots to defeat some global cabal, but that is an ideology that's put forward by truly anti-Semites. I mean, you hate to say that, but that's all it is. The word cabal is just a dog whistle for Jews. And that's the whole meaning behind it. So anybody that's saying, oh, they're all working together against the cabal, it's nonsense. Nonsense. President Putin would love nothing more than to defeat Ukraine, then move into Poland, move into Germany, and resurrect the old USSR. That's his goal. There's no other goal. He has expressed this numerous times that when he was younger and the USSR fell, nobody cared about the people that were just left behind. He's very bitter. This is a bitter guy who's got an axe to grind against the West. And she's just looking to remain in power. So that's his whole thing. He's got a military. He's purging every other day of various people that he doesn't agree with and spies. God only knows what happens to those fellas. So look, the president of the United States right now is trying to eliminate a great threat, and that is the Iranian regime is run by a bunch of lunatics who for 50 years have been saying death to the West, death to Israel, death to the United States. And, oh, they're not looking to get nuclear weapons. Turns out they were. Oh, they don't have long-range ballistic missiles. Turns out they did. And even our own intelligence director of national intelligence was saying to the press, oh, they don't have long-range ballistic missiles. And the president had to get on in an interview and basically said, well, she's wrong. They do. And that's all I have to say about this. So we took out their capabilities. Now we've got them on the verge of bankruptcy, and they're coming to the table. If they think they can carry out longer, fine, but they're not getting any money.
Time's gone, Dave. Thank you so much again. We've sorted the world's problems out.
Yes, we have. If only these world leaders would listen to us, everything would be resolved.
I'm speechless for once. We'll see you next week.